All right, I've got about 4:35, so I'm sure the 4 million people that are out there watching, maybe not quite 4 million, maybe a few, will be glad to see that we're live. Thanks to Jeff for live streaming this. It makes it a whole lot easier for everybody else. And thanks to Teresa. I don't know that I thanked her enough last year. She helps out with the minutes and stuff like that because I can't read my own handwriting later on. So that's always a bad thing. Figured the easiest thing to do would maybe do introductions. I think you guys are all pretty much the same, but it's a little bit different over here. Before we do that, I'm going to have Brad Wilson step up here and be on video so that everybody can see him. He keeps calling me names, but they're not my names. So I'm not sure if that is on purpose or I'm not sure if that's like this is a message or I'm going to have Michelle.
Okay. I'm Michelle Caudell and board member. Been on for 3 years. And my kids both, well, I have a junior this year coming up, and then my oldest graduated from Seaman in 2020. So.
And I'm Marty Neistat, Executive Director of HR and Operations.
Jamie Weddick, Director of Business and Finance.
Christy Weiler, board member since last August. I also had a kiddo graduate in 2020. I have an upcoming junior, and all of my husband's family went to Seaman and graduated from here.
Mike Holt, Seaman Middle School, special ed.
Jamie Leduc, Elmont, special ed. Liz Crummins, librarian at Northern Hills. Jill Becker, Seaman Middle School, special ed teacher. Sophomore, 8th grade twins, and that's true. I have an upcoming junior.
I thought,
Yes.
yeah.
Katie. I have a freshman and a 5th grader.
Yeah, Mike's like me. Mine are old. Thank you, Brad.
Bye, Brad.
All right, it looks like you were up first.
Yeah, I thought it might help to maybe discuss just an overview of the budget and some ideas on that and where we're at and kind of what we know so far. I know in the email that I'd sent, I think we may want to, July 13th is the next meeting, which is longer than I would like, but we're hoping that we can close out the books and have exactly how much money we have. Have more detailed. I know that Mr. Weddick was at a budget workshop, which those are fascinating. I'm sorry that I didn't get to be there for that, but he can probably give you some just kind of a general overview of where we're at. We'll know more when we come back after the end of the fiscal year. There you go. You bet.
All right. So as you know, this is the last year of the plan that was approved by the Supreme Court and the legislature. So you'll see 3% new money come into the district. That's about $424,000 in the general fund, of which that $424,000, the actual general fund, because you have to take special education funding out of there. New money in the general fund that's not special ed would be about $350,000. And then something that's not mentioned here for the general fund would be the LOB. You have a valuation increase, which doesn't necessarily mean that your LOB is going to get more money, but you will see about $115,000 of new money in the LOB. And that's based on that 350. So your LOB is 33% of what you can raise in your general fund. And we're at 33%, which is the max. So if you take the new money, which is 300, average 350,000 times 33%, that's what the LOB will increase. So the 350 and the 115 together is actual new money that can be spent.
So that would be about 465 new money. Correct. Ballpark. And we'll, by the time we get everything closed out, we'll be able to have, I think, exact numbers and various.
So I'll just say, like, Wednesday was the last day for vendor run. Next week, well, no, July 6th will be the last run of any payroll, and that'll be just a hourly staff that are working in the summer. And so after July 6th, and that is when we will be able to run our final cash balances and transfers. That's why the 13th is chosen.
And we want you guys to know what we have to work with so that we can have an idea. Figure we'll go through stuff. Some of these may be things that are fairly easy and we can kind of come to some agreements on. Some of them maybe not, but we also want to have some clarity. This is one of those where we kind of, my hope is that we can always go through and try and make sure that our understanding and your understanding of the particular topic is the same. That we're not thinking one thing and you guys are thinking another, and somehow I mess it up. So if you guys are good, we'll roll into the next one. Is that okay? Discretionary leave. I know you had that listed.
We did the last couple of years, so it seems like we've been getting closer and closer every year to not having a sick leave and discretionary leave for the year. So our proposal is we would like to make that all just leave. We're open to doing it in various different ways, but that is what our overall goal is to make everything just.
And I suspected that was it, but I didn't want to put that. And then you guys look at me like, are you drinking in the afternoon or what's going on? Okay. So the idea would be that it would all be leave.
Yes.
Okay. And you've got bereavement leave as a separate one.
Correct.
Okay.
Currently, bereavement leave is listed differently, and in our contract, bereavement leave is there. However, my understanding is, according to contract, that if you take bereavement leave, the district does not have bereavement leave. It's essentially what you have in your sick leave, and sick leave days get taken out. And why we call it bereavement leave, even though they're taking sick leave, I have no idea. It's kind of weird to me. But as a team, we've talked about this in the last couple of years, and right now our feeling is that we don't think that teachers and staff should need to take sick leave if immediate family members should pass. That the district provide a set number of leave days, and if they would like to take over that, then that could take from sick, but to help relieve some of the burden on your family, on you and your family during that absolutely awful time, that we would like the district to provide a few days of just leave for the death of an immediate family member.
Absolutely. And to make sure that and you guys know how, I'll beat it to death, but I want to make sure that I'm clear. You're suggesting something like, there'd be like 3 days awarded, and I'm using that. That's not to say that that's the right number or anything. That's just a pretty typical number that's used most times. That would be awarded in those extraordinary cases, not charged to anyone individually, but awarded in the event that there were a tragedy.
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry, I have a question. Do
Sure.
we have a definition of immediate family?
I would guess we would probably use what's in the negotiated agreement.
Well, we had changed that a little bit.
Right, to where it included.
It included some adopted parents and things that are general overall goal is your parents, a child, brother, sister, grandparent, not great uncle.
Gotcha.
Does it include your in-law parent?
I would think it would include your in-law parent. So yes.
I would too. I just wanted to make sure it was in there.
And that's something as we move forward, we could always define specifics on it if we needed to. Duty-free lunch.
So we talked about this again. We currently, the contract provides 25 minutes for duty-free lunch. And no teacher actually ever gets 25 minutes, especially at the elementary level. You have to have the kids get 25 minutes because you drop them off, but you then have to drop them off. If it's a long line, they wait with their kids. A lot of times, hopefully they don't have to wait, and we try as people who monitor the lunchroom, they don't. But then because of all of that, you don't actually get your 25 minutes. So by extending that and making it a 30-minute, you would still get 25 minutes of time to maybe sit down and eat your food. The elementary, I think, is a little bit more flexible. I had asked a secondary teacher, just kind of, hey, if we were to do this, what would that do to the high school calendar or high school timing? And he's like, I don't think it will do anything for the high school timing, because I think because of them not walking kids for the most of the
Right,
day,
it's a
everything is-
little different
it's a little
situation.
different situation.
Sure. And this is a question, and it just popped into my mind, so for what it's worth. If we were to say extend for 5 minutes, and I'm thinking this through,
Right.
because if I can get a question out now, we can kind of have an idea. Would you guys be opposed to potentially adding 5 minutes a day to make sure that we did that?
We would have to talk about that.
But that might be one of those things. It's not a no, but you would have to talk about it.
We would have to talk about that.
Okay. All right. To mix it up a little bit, I threw in the liquidated damages. And I know we've talked about this before, going from 750 to 1,000 to 1,500, 12 to 1,750, 1,500 to 2,000. And obviously the rationale is, I think we could all agree, we have more folks breaking contract at this time than we've ever had before. And you guys are really the ones that take the brunt of that. When someone leaves mid-contract, it creates a burden for the folks that aren't leaving. And that idea would be simply to try to deter people from doing that. I know as a first-year teacher, I didn't even realize that was something you could do. It never even occurred to me. But that kind of gives you an idea on what that one is. And I think we've talked about it in the past. So if you've got questions, holler.
How many times have you had to do that this past year?
I would have to look, Mike, but I know that we've had several, 3 or 4 in the last couple of years that have broken contract.
But have we actually charged them?
We charge them every time.
Everybody has been.
But that since I've been here, yes. And if there's not one that's happened to, then I'm not aware of it. It comes out of their last paycheck. So it's always more challenging for folks that leave in the summer, because depending on when the paychecks fall and whether they were a lump sum person or things like that. But I can tell you that I know, I can think of at least 2 where we got a personal check from folks that had already received their last check and went ahead and did that. Yeah. Our intent is, I'm not saying that it's not possible that it hasn't happened, but I don't want it to be any different for anybody. I want it to be as consistent as we can be. If you ever find out that something like that's not, let me know, because it's slipped through and I'm not aware of it. My wife would tell you there's a lot of things I'm not aware of. Hours of work. I think we put this on there the last couple of years to increase the duty day by 15 minutes. And obviously the rationale would be to increase student academic performance. I don't know exactly what that would look like, if it would be on the start or the end or split. But but just throwing that out as an item. Leave accumulation.
Real quick.
Go ahead, sure.
On that one, we are going to need some more information for us to be fully informed.
Okay.
So what would that look like?
You'd
what
kind of
are-
like
what are
to
the
see what it
goals
would
of
look
that?
like.
You
Sure.
know, what would busing look like? Because if you're changing the start time of school, you're changing busing and how, I know we had an issue with, we couldn't do a 2-hour late start because we did have some busing issues. So we still have those busing issues. I would just like some more information about that
Sure.
before we can debate that.
Absolutely. No,
I
no.
think what would that have to do? Where is that increase by coming at 15 minutes? It's like at the secondary level, what is that, 2 to 3 minutes? A class more, I mean, like, what does that look like? Why do we think it will be an increase?
Well, and the simple answer is if we have 15 more minutes with students, we would hope that we would have that much that we gain. But fair question, I don't know. But we can look at that and see.
And like, are
What it would
principals
look like.
aware of that in administration, like, of what their schedules would look like with that 15 minutes? And where would we put it?
To be honest with you, we haven't gone anymore. If you guys say no, then I don't need to pursue it farther. So the answer to your question, Jill, is no. They don't know because we haven't said, hey, this is something that's imminent or likely to happen. But that makes perfect sense to get more information. We can do that. Leave accumulation totals. And I think we talked about this a little bit last year. The idea would be to reduce the number of accumulated sick leave days to 90. Currently, 100 is the max that we would pay out. So there are often a lot of days that are just out there.
I had a couple of questions on that one too.
Sure.
For you to do some.
Yep.
thinking on.
Yep.
So if we reduce it to 90, but we can, when you retire, you can get paid up to 100.
Understandable.
Okay,
I think we would probably have to grandfather it in because we have people that have over 100 now.
but you're not proposing changing the amount that you're getting.
I think that
It would
that
still-
that total would be something that we put a number on it. I think it's flexible. I don't think we're so locked into it just being 90 days or 80 days. 100 may be the right amount. I don't know.
So my next question is currently right now it's 180.
Correct.
And so this is cutting it in half.
Mhm.
And, we talked about, when we met, we had talked about, okay, well, if you were to do this, you would obviously want a grandfather clause for those people who have over that. so that
Correct.
They wouldn't
Yeah,
have
absolutely.
to sell.
Yeah, that would be the only fair
anything
thing.
Like that. But from your guys' point of view, what would be the rationale in cutting that? I mean, 180 days is a full school year, almost. It's a lot.
Right.
But I was just wondering from your guys' point of view, what would be the rationale in cutting that?
Sure. And we can get you some of that.
Yeah.
Some of it obviously is with the sick leave sharing and everything, if we've got somebody that has an extraordinary situation, that they would still be able to have some time. It's what they're able to carry, not necessarily what they would be able to take, if that makes sense.
Correct.
Part of it is you accumulate a lot of days that just aren't ever used. It just cleans it up, is really what it boils down to.
If I recollect correctly from last year, I think that maybe even was discussed hand in hand with your proposal of discretionary leave.
No,
You'd have 100, they would have technically all leave was
no,
discretionary leave. They'd have 180 days.
when you discussed it, what ultimately negated the discretionary leave conversation last year was you wanted to tie it to teachers' ability to sell back at the end of the year.
That was one of the things. Yeah.
And that's ultimately what we didn't like.
So then I guess.
I don't remember this, honestly, I don't remember this coming up last year.
But that would be correct, though. You have 180 days if all the days were discretionary, you'd have 180 discretionary days.
No, because we had talked about sick leave. That those would be considered sick leave, not discretionary. And so you could only use them if you use up all of your current this year's leave. Like you only, kind of like what we currently do.
Gotcha. Yep.
So you guys can build up 180, but you get paid for 100.
At retirement. they
At
can get paid-
retirement.
They can get paid
Gotcha.
up to retire, up to 100. A resignation, they don't get that,
Okay.
only at retirement.
Thank you for clarifying.
Sure. Good question. Number 9, reduction in force language. We would propose adding language to the reduction in force that would include, as part of the criteria, evaluations on determining reduction in force. We've got multiple items on there, and this would just be another one of those things that would be included.
What
I
are
think
the other
we-
items?
You would ask, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
That's
And while you look, I'll just, can I just keep talking?
Sure,
Okay.
absolutely, absolutely.
We asked because evaluation is, it's kind of subjective to the person who is doing the evaluating. And, you know, we would want to know, okay, are you going to look historically at their evaluations? Are you just going to look at this past year at their evaluations? You know, is there a conflict, like just a personality conflict between the building administrator and the person being evaluated? And that's why their evaluations have gone down, but for the last 15 years before that, their evaluations were great. You know, we've had our current evaluation system long enough where you could really compare those.
My suggestion would be that it would be a cumulative look. And right now, the way that it is listed is the Board of Education shall accomplish the reduction of licensed staff in the following priority order. 1, normal attrition, which we always want that to be the case. 2, probationary teachers dependent on licensed qualifications. 3, non-probationary teachers in priority order as listed below. Instructional training skills, licensure relevant to retained positions, qualifications to teach according to KSDE licensing requirements. 3 would be consecutive years of experience, teaching experience in USD 345, and D would be consecutive years of teaching experience in general.
Okay, so if those are in order, I guess we would want to know from you guys, like, where would that one fall?
Right, and I think that would be the discussion we would want to have with you guys. I think I would feel much more comfortable suggesting to the board that if you guys sit there and say, yeah, that's all right, but we want to put it as number 3 or number 4, number 5 or number 1, whatever, wherever we are in that. And I agree with you. I think we would want to have that be a cumulative snapshot as opposed to a single evaluation.
Agree.
I don't think we would want it to be, you had a bad year and we've all had bad years, and that be the only determining factor. And again, we don't ever want to get to the point where we have a reduction in force, but it would just be another criteria to help be able to distinguish. Again, if we get down to the 4th one, you hope that by that point you've been able to separate based upon the math and the numbers, but sometimes you can't. You know, sometimes the person's been here for 10 years and they've taught 20 years and they have the same qualifications and everything else. It would just be an extra step. And that might be the last step. It might be number 5 on that. But that's, and again, you guys are going to want to mull that over, and you may think of all sorts of things that we haven't figured out or thought about. Let's pull that back up here. All right. Extra duty pay. We would like to propose a couple of things. We would like to propose an increase to all academic extra duty pay to $20. Currently, it's $15.50. We'd also like to increase non-academic extra duty pay to one tier, and that'd be $15.50.
And it doesn't matter on if you're middle school, high school, JV,
Nope.
varsity,
Doesn't matter.
door
It would,
handler.
nope,
clock,
it would all be,
Okay.
it would all be the same.
And did that come from the committee? I know we talked several years about leading a committee. So was there an actual committee that met this year?
Yes, we met, Jill.
How about that?
We met about extra duty pay, and we had another group that met about supplementals. Yes,
So it was like the ADs and coaches.
I didn't meet with the ADs and coaches. It was with the folks that you guys had given me. And those were the ones that I met with. So that would be our proposal on that part. The second one is almost in conjunction with. We would like to increase the teacher substitute pay, which obviously is now $15.50 to $20 for a full period. And I know that you guys had compensation listed as an item dealing with class coverage. I'm thinking that we're talking the same thing
We
there.
are talking the same thing, yeah. Just to clarify, you have $20 for a full period, but of course at the elementary level, that.
Right.
So would that still be,
Right. It would be the same way that we have it set up now.
okay,
I didn't know what words to use
okay,
on
I
that.
just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So for, because at the elementary level, then it would be per hour for
Right.
the whole class.
Sure.
So if you're splitting the class,
Right. And then it would be, everything would be the same
Okay.
except for the amount.
Okay.
The wording would stay the same. The only thing that we would propose would be, we would change it from 15.50 to 20.
Okay.
Okay. Number of duty days.
it is, I didn't know where to put it. And it's not really a number of duty days as far as what we do in those duty days. So
Okay.
number 12 and number 13 kind of go together. So for the number of duty days, there is so much jam-packed in the beginning of school. And depending on what building you're at and depending on what you do, whether you are a coach, whether you are in SPED, whether you have, whatever it is you're doing, if you're CTE, you might have extra meetings during those times. Or you could be a specials teacher and you don't have those curriculum meetings that classroom teachers have, and so you have more time. It just varies. But a lot of times, we have noticed that there isn't necessarily just a set time for working in your room, period. No meetings, no SPED meetings, no heat meetings, coaches heat meetings, nothing. It's just a set time for you to work in your room. And that goes along with the mandated KASB trainings, the online ones. Well, I think it was better this year.
That was going to be my question.
Better. We still had some areas that it was not better in. Like I do know that our special ed teachers did them at home because special ed scheduled times during, the principal had scheduled their ability to have, okay, well, you can go do your things now, and that's great, and classroom teachers got to do it and everything. The special ed teachers didn't get to do it because they had to go to that meeting.
Sure.
I think the high school had an issue with the heat meeting with that, where they didn't get a lot of their time because they had coaches meetings. Okay, and so it's just trying to get everybody on the same page. And we think probably the easiest way to do that would just be to designate, you get so many hours in your contract in order to be able to do these meetings.
Make sure that I think I'm following. The idea being, and you tell me if I'm wrong, the idea being designating specific time for the sake of argument. And again, this is just an example from 8 to 12 on day 2 or whatever,
Right,
that is set aside for online training.
right.
Can't be used for anything else.
And
And maybe having day, and again, I'd have to look at the calendar. Day 3 is a work day in your classroom or something like that.
And again, we would love, we would love for that to be designated specifically in the contract for that time. And should something happen and you're like, okay, we have to have this meeting and the presenter can only come during this time, we would love for the district to come into us and say, hey, I know this is what it says in the contract, but what if we did this instead?
Right, a swap.
Right, we would just swap, and that's, I mean, we would totally be open to that, but I just think that there's so much going on at the beginning of the year that having some set time for teachers just to do the things they need to do.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. I was confused on the duty days thing. I was like, I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I appreciate it. And then, and I'm guessing that's 12 and 13 both kind of
Yeah.
combined. And then obviously, the big things we'll have are supplemental schedule, salary schedule, and salaries. We don't have a proposal right now because we'd like to see what we're going to get and how everything's going to line out. Hopefully, maybe on the 13th, that would be something we can do. We want to be able to do that as soon as possible. I'm guessing you guys don't have a proposal at this
We
point.
do not know.
Okay. What other items or what things have we not covered, or did I not get added on there that?
Well, on the agenda you sent us, it had talked about insurance. And
Yes,
um,
yes.
I'm thinking that while we can read it, we might, for people who are watching,
Absolutely.
maybe talk about that a little bit.
This is what happens when I use Google Docs and Word Docs and try to
She's worried.
go back and forth.
I use Safari,
I,
so
my,
there you go.
my,
Don't take it away from me.
my big problem has to do with the fact that I can't remember what I called something in Google Docs. And then I'm like, well, I had it somewhere. I will tell you that, let me find it here.
While you're looking for that, is there, before our next meeting, since it is gonna be a few weeks away, could we please have our numbers for breakage? So.
Yes, and I would have had those today, but we're still have some positions that we're filling. So it's hard to give you a good number when some of those are, I know we had interviews, I think it was yesterday or today on one of them. And I know we had some earlier this week. So some of them are waiting to hear back. And then I can plug those numbers in and we can see where that difference is. But yes, I should be able to give you, and if not, if haven't filled all the positions, I can give you what we have.
Okay.
And then we can just always understand that if we hire these 2 positions or whatever, let me write that down. Absolutely. Okay.
I thought we were typo.
No, I wish that it were.
That's what I told.
We were hoping that you did.
We all were too. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I will tell you that we have, up until recently, we had done, really, we've done pretty well. Um, it's a bad thing when you can't see with your glasses and you can't see without them. All right, health insurance costs. Yeah, there we go. We got our first bid, which I will tell you what I've learned with Blue Cross Blue Shield is the first one you get is always ugly. Now, when I say that, I've never had one this ugly. Their first bid came in at 40.7% increase. And I will tell you, there's probably a lot of districts that would never share that with you, but I don't want you guys not to know. And in years past, I've told you, a couple of years ago, it was 19% is what they started off with. And we got it down, I think it was 4.5 or 5% is what it ended up. Obviously, we're negotiating with them.
Are we using, do we use KASB before, are we?
We use GAASB. We also use a group called the McKinnis Group, which
That was what I
helps
was
us.
thinking of.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What we have done is we have sent out bids to at least 3 other companies. And there is a 4th organization, which is a pool that we are attempting to get a bid from. The challenge with the pool is that they have criteria on who they'll accept. And for the same reason that we have the 40.7% increase being thrown out as Blue Cross Blue Shield, which I'm going to explain to you, is probably why they would exclude us from being able to join the pool at this point. I think it's something that we look at as we continue down the road, because I think it could be beneficial for each employee. I don't know that with the criteria that they have that we would be able to be, we could apply, but we would probably be turned down. Having said all that, before we got that, and let me tell you, I got that right before we went on vacation. And that was not what I wanted to get the couple days before I went on vacation. We are proposing that we would increase $30 towards the health benefits. Now, as you can imagine, if I was hoping that maybe we'd come in at a % or 2, what has happened is this. We have one claim that is $1.5 million this past year in our pool, our group. We have 4 folks or 4 claims that total roughly $3 million. That's why that's happened. I can get you the information if you want, but what it boils down to is that because we have a huge claim, there are the ways that those would not impact their bid would be if the person either was no longer part of the group or no longer took insurance. And I will tell you that HIPAA requires that you can't know all the information about it. But what I would tell you is that based upon the information I'm aware, that is either one of those criteria are going to benefit us on this. Having said that, there are some breaks or stop gaps that are supposed to happen with Blue Cross Blue Shield. The policy that we have is set up in such a way, and this goes back years and probably decades, where it benefits us more when things go well, and it hurts us more when things go bad. I would tell you that we have insurance because we ought to have insurance, and that's something that's important for every employee, each one of us in here. You know, we want that to be an offer. And I know since I've been here, we've tried each year to add to the contribution the district makes. The challenge that we have right now is the bids that we're putting out for other companies get the same information. United Health was one of them. Cigna. And I don't remember, and Aetna, I think.
They get the same.
They're going to, right, the criteria that they're going to receive is going to be the same. They've got the information, and their question has been, can you tell us more about the unusually large claims? And again, we don't have much ability to do that. Now, I'm going to tell you something that's not going to surprise you at all. Blue Cross Blue Shield doesn't want to give out a whole lot of information because they don't want it to go to a competitor who might look at it differently and say, well, we're going to make it better than that. I don't think it's unreasonable that we could end up with somewhere between 15 and 20% of an increase. It won't be 40.7, but I don't know what it will be. And this has been an ongoing, obviously, and we've been working toward trying to come up with a resolution. It impacts every one of us that takes insurance. And that's not a reasonable amount. And I was already not popular with Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I've made myself less popular, which is okay. I don't care because I'm here to help you guys.
Just a little information for you on the numbers. If we do the $30, that's going to be about another 150,000. Based on the number of employees currently taking the health insurance. Currently, we pay a little over $1.65 million in health premiums for current staff, and right around a little over 300,000 for our retired staff. So right now we spend as a district a little over $2 million on health insurance premiums.
Well,
that was cherry, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, I'm sitting here doing the math though, like I know what I'm paying a month, and let's say it goes up 20%, appreciative of the $30, but that doesn't even touch and increase that. And there's been years where we've lost money because of our, like, I'm taking home less money because of our insurance. And that can't continue. We already have inflation with everything else.
Right.
I mean, I saw that you're supposed to, like how our gas is, our electric or what was it? Fuels increased, utility, yeah, staff's fuels, we're experiencing that as well.
And so am I.
Yeah. Well,
it's all of us.
Speaking of increase, like the fuel and the utility and stuff like that, property insurance?
Yeah.
So property casualty went up about $89,000, and the bulk of that contribution is to inflation and property values. The Andover tornado everybody wants to talk about because we belong to that cohort was about 1% of the reason for the increase in that cost. And you also had an increase of the component of cybersecurity was up 40%, and they added a new component in there of pollution. So combine those all together, you got 19%. We were 19%. The average is 22.
Right.
But it's about $89,000.
Yeah, and the pollution one, because we asked that question, we said, well, they hadn't had this before. And it deals with if you have to have a mitigation strategy on things like mold in walls and things of that nature. It covers for if you have to have that removed. And it's just like asbestos. You can't just go in there. Let me change that. You're not supposed to just go in there, depending on the type of mold and everything else, to have that. And so it's all part of it. The huge one was, again, it was the cybersecurity, which I'm going to tell you is hugely important to have.
Did we get a discount for all of our 1,200 blank passwords that we all have now?
That's why we were.
Everybody looks at.
That's why we were at 19% of an increase as opposed to 22 is actually because of all the stuff that Jeff does. That actually saved us on that category. I know, trust me, I can't remember any of them, but to Jeff's credit, those things are keeping that from not being worse. And you can imagine 19% is bad and 80, 87, 89,000, whatever it happens to be. But imagine if we add another 3% onto it. And Jill, I completely understand. I had to fill up my truck yesterday. And for the first time in my life, I was filling it up and it hit the point where it said, that's all that you can do. It hit $99 and it said, this is the limit. And I'm like, but I'm not sure that it's full. And I've not had that happen before. So trust me, I get it. And here's the thing that I would tell you. We are all in this together. We understand. I'm just telling you, and I don't want to speak out of place for the board, but they understand. They have to go to the gas pump and they have utility bills and all of those things too. Our challenge is we have a finite amount of money and we still want to make certain that teachers and all staff members are taken care of.
Speaking to the fuel for, if you want to write this down, the 3-year average was $150,000, but keep in mind, we didn't really have 3 full years. But this year's fuel cost exceeded $300,000. And then looking at budgeting, when you talk to other individuals, so you'd say, well, we spent 300, but that was half a year with $5 diesel. So we budgeted, I said, well, we'll budget 500,000. And they said, no, you need to budget at least double. So we'll end up budgeting $600,000 for our fuel this year, which obviously isn't just 100%. It goes from 150 to 600,000 from what we're going to budget in fuel. And then utilities, I know I ran utilities in April. And at that point, we had already surpassed our utility bill for the last year by $200,000. And I know that we're all doing that. That's just numbers for you to have.
Yeah. And that's why, and we want you to have it. We do. We want you to have the cost, but we want you to understand. I've said this, and I think many of you have heard me say it a million times, and I think that this is true. There's no one in education that's overpaid. I'm just telling you. It's the most important jobs on the planet, in my opinion. And I don't think there's anybody that is paid as much as we would like them to be or probably deserve to be. But we work in public education, so we're given and allotted a certain amount of money. And we want to make that as valuable to everybody as we can. And that's part of, I know, I would suspect that there will be districts throughout the state that things become very adversarial. And we don't want that to be the case. We know that you guys understand all that. I'm not telling you stuff you don't know. And we want to work together and try and come up with the best solutions that we can. Any other questions?
No, do you care if we take a 10-minute break and we'll do a caucus and we'll talk about the
July
13th.
Please say it's not January.
We'll talk about the July 13th date while we're in there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
So I've got 5:23.
Yep.
I think we covered, like, we checked to make sure we covered everything we were gonna talk
Sure.
about, and so we're good. We talked about the July 13th time. I'm good there. My only thing is I'm teaching summer school, so it's going to be in the afternoon.
Yeah. 4:30 work?
I think this is a fine time. I don't have a problem with
I
it.
think it works better for, yeah, the 13th at 4:30.
Yeah. Yeah, here again?
Yeah, if
Okay.
you guys, is that all right?
Yeah, this is great. And then, just to clarify, because I sent out an email today, and I got lots of questions about whether we're gonna be live streamed. We should, but we're just planning on live streaming all of them, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
Jeff may hand it off to Alec Gardner, but maybe. Because we brought in the pro
Right.
to do it. Yeah, absolutely. It should all be live streamed unless there's some kind of technical something that would happen. Yep, absolutely.
did you guys need anything from us before the next meeting?
I don't think so. If so, I'll holler at
Okay,
you. And the same with you guys. If you think of something, it's okay.
okay.
Holler back at me and let me know, and we'll just keep chopping wood and plugging along. Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you guys for coming in. I appreciate it. I know it was a rainy day, so all I know is that I think it will be a little steamy tomorrow.
It will be warm.
All right.
Awesome.
I know a couple of these ladies have to get other places.